Okay, let's go.
For a long time, information inside organizations followed a familiar rule. The higher you climbed, the more you knew. Decisions stayed behind closed doors. Strategies lived in executive meetings. And the rest of the organization was expected to trust the system without always seeing how it worked. That was the traditional model, because control was often mistaken for leadership, and secrecy was sometimes confused with stability. But the workplace rebels of today are starting to challenge that idea. They understand that trust doesn't grow in silence, it grows in clarity. And the strongest workplace cultures aren't built by hiding information from people. They're built by knowing what to share, when to share it, and how transparency can strengthen the entire organization. This is your resident office ninja reporting for duty. This is the Office Ninja Podcast. Transparency. It's the buzzword everyone loves to post about, but not everyone actually practices it. We say we want honesty. We say we want openness. We say we want trust. Until someone starts telling the truth, and suddenly, the room gets quiet. Here's the twist. The healthiest workplaces aren't the ones that keep secrets. They are the ones that know how to share information wisely. Because transparency doesn't mean chaos. Sometimes it means clarity. And for today, we're unpacking the idea of radical transparency. When openness stops being risky and starts becoming the foundation of real workplace culture. First up, what radical transparency really means. First things first, radical transparency isn't about sharing everything. It's about sharing what matters. Think of it as openness with intention. Decisions, goals, and feedback that are shared not for gossip but for growth. When employees understand the why behind company moves, trust multiplies. When leaders are honest about challenges, not just successes, team feels valued, not blindsided. Radical transparency says, we trust you with the truth. And in return, people respond with ownership, not speculation. Why traditional secrecy no longer works. Let's be real. The old way of managing information doesn't fit the new workplace anymore. Millennials and Gen Z grew up in the era of instant access. They expect visibility, not mystery. So when organizations hide data, delay updates, or sugarcoat news, it creates anxiety instead of stability. Transparency builds resilience. Secrecy builds rumors. And in a time when remote work, AI tools, and hybrid teams are rewriting the rules daily, the only way to keep people engaged is to keep them informed. How oversharing can actually build culture. Now here's where it gets interesting. Oversharing, when done right, can actually strengthen culture. When leaders talk openly about failures, others feel safe to admit theirs. When HR shares metrics on engagement, retention, or even turnover, employees start seeing. Transparency breeds empathy. It makes accountability a shared responsibility, not a top-down demand. In short, radical transparency doesn't make things messy. The smart way to practice radical transparency. So how do you do it right? Here's the ninja way. Number 1, share context, not chaos. Explain the why behind the data or decisions. 2, protect privacy, not egos. Be open, but never at the expense of personal respect. 3rd, model vulnerability. Leaders who admit they don't have all the answers earn more trust than those who pretend they do. And number 4, keep feedback loops alive. Radical transparency works both ways. People should feel safe to speak truth to power. Transparency and inner peace. When everyone's on the same page, mental load decreases. No guessing, no whispering, no who knows what. Transparency reduces emotional clutter, and that clarity brings peace. As a leader, being transparent isn't about control. It's about letting go. And sometimes, letting go of secrecy is the calm your culture needs. And here are some key takeaways from today's episode. Radical transparency isn't oversharing, it's intentional openness. Secrecy builds distrust. Honesty breeds resilience. When people understand the why, they engage with the how. The best cultures don't hide, they communicate. And lastly, peace at work starts with clarity and trust. And for our call to action, this week, share something you've been holding back. Maybe a project update, a team decision, or even a personal insight that could help others. Because when you lead with transparency, you lead with trust. And trust, that's culture. If this episode opened your perspective, share it with your team because every great workplace starts with one brave conversation. And as always, prioritize your inner peace. See you next Sunday, ninjas.